Today is a very special day. It is the 1 year anniversary, the 1 year bass anniversary of when I got this bass right here. And that year really flew by, so I thought I would cover all my basses and give a little bit of an update on the bass, on my playing, and the whole journey of learning bass better, or at all really, over the past year. So this is my Fender American Professional 2 precision bass in Miami blue with a maple neck. I absolutely love this bass. From the moment I opened it up, it has been phenomenal. And I've put hundreds of hours into it over the past year, so much so that even though I've been playing guitar since 2001 and drums since 2015, at this point I would say that the bass is the instrument that I'm most comfortable with. I'm staring at my guitars behind the camera and feeling guilty saying that in front of them, so don't tell them. Something about the bass just kind of clicked for me in a way that other instruments didn't. So I want to talk about this bass, that experience, and then I'll share some of my progress because there's been some progress. So the bass itself has held up absolutely great. I bought it from Sweetwater. I did a follow-up video all about the 55-point inspection, and I was very hypercritical of that, but you know, you kind of should be. But this thing has been absolutely amazing. I've had no issues with it. It works great. It plays great. It's really hard to show Miami blue on camera because it looks different in every lighting scenario and every photo, but it's really awesome in person. I love it. I love the maple neck. I love the finish and the profile of the neck. This is not my first bass. I did have like a $120 SX bass from Rondo Music that I've been using for a couple of years. And that was kind of just a utility thing, really. Like if I wanted to try to learn a song, if I wanted to record something and I just needed a simple bass track, I would use that. And that bass, I cannot complain for the $120, but it was much more of a utility thing and not something that like encouraged me to want to play more. Whereas this one, every time I pick it up, I just want to keep using it more and more because it's so much fun. So it is expensive, but it is an instrument that encourages me to play more. Not that you have to spend a bunch of money to find an instrument like that, but it's the first time I've had that experience with the bass. My initial goal was just to play some songs, learn a bunch of Blink-182 songs and have fun, and I started doing that. And then I got kind of more interested in learning to play better. Very simple riff, like Blink-182 songs are great because they're relatively easy to learn on bass, but there's enough complex parts thrown in to keep it super interesting. Like what is it, Anthem Part 1? And so I started out just trying to learn front to back Blink-182 albums, like whole albums at a time, which is a really fun endeavor. And then I kind of started to want to learn more about actually playing the bass. I got really into the Bass Buzz YouTube channel, which is absolutely terrific, and there's tons of great stuff on there. But Josh, who runs that channel, also has a course called Beginner to Badass, which I don't know that I would qualify myself as a badass, but I did take and finish the course, and I'm going through it a second time now, and I really recommend that because it's the first time I've ever been able to kind of understand music theory at all. So the bass itself just works in a way that my brain follows, and I think the role that it plays in music is something that just sort of makes more sense to me than other instruments do. But then also the way Josh explains things in the course, it's very easy to pick up things like basic music reading, scales, improv, you know, just chord progressions, how to decipher things, how to fit into an existing song. And I like playing with a pick because my two favorite bassists are Mark Hoppus and Matt Freeman, and they play with picks. But the course is pretty much all finger style bass. So I feel like it was a good chance for me to break out of what I would normally do, try something a little different. There's like a couple of lessons that are pick oriented, which is great, but they're kind of at the end. Everything else, you're learning everything else by just using your fingers. So I started the course in May and I finished in September, and I did usually about a lesson a day. Sometimes I go a day or two maybe in between them. Each lesson takes roughly 30-ish minutes to go through, and then, you know, you can practice it. So my kind of routine was to start with the lesson, which is really structured, and then when I was done with that, if I wanted to just play around, like, you know, trying to learn a Rancid song or play a Blink-182 album, then I would do that. But it culminated in spending like 1 to 2 hours almost every day playing the bass. I like that the course ended with some really good pointers about how to keep practicing with purpose afterwards. And so I've been doing that. since then, really. And then I restarted the course just because. So even the super basic stuff, like I already knew how to tune an instrument and, where to put your fingers and stuff. But it was kind of nice to go back through those basic lessons because I did pick up some new things and some sort of best practices. I didn't want to have any bad habits. If you watch the video, when I'm just getting this, I have zero control over my pinky or anything. So building up those kind of muscles and those kinds of skills is really good. Not that there's anything, if you're having fun playing with your thumb over the fretboard and just using your first two fingers, that's cool. But it is kind of neat to learn some of the more, correct ways to do things. And then if you want to break those rules later on, you at least know what you're breaking and why you're breaking it. And another thing that I did based on the advice from the course was I took my other bass, my very inexpensive one, I just kind of put it in our living room. So that way it's always there. And every day, even if there's like 5 minutes before we get ready to go somewhere, I just pick it up multiple times throughout the day and play a riff, play a scale, just go through it. So I'm playing the bass every single day for the past year, pretty much every single day. And that's made a huge difference. Just never having to there's no friction between thinking I want to try something on the bass and having a bass to pick up to try it. And so having an instrument that encourages me to play, having a course with literally, even though I've never met Josh in person or in real time, just watching the pre-recorded go at your own pace course, literally the best teacher I've ever had for anything, absolutely amazing. So I think the course is like $300 and you have lifetime access. Do it if you want to learn the bass. Go to beginner to badass and become a badass. I don't have anything super fancy set up to record here. This is just, I have the Earthworks Ethos just sitting next to my amp over there. And that's kind of it. So it's just being recorded into the Rodecaster. So like I said, my two favorite bass players are Mark Hoppus from Blink-182 and Matt Freeman from Rancid and Operation Ivy. They have similar styles, like punk bassists that play with a pick, but Matt Freeman tends to be significantly more complex than Mark Hoppus does, although there's really fun, kind of complex things in some Blink-182 songs. So as you're learning, you can learn the basics, the bass basics, where you can do something simple. But then every once in a while, something is thrown in that's a little tougher to learn, or the Man Overboard intro, which I never thought I would learn. I think there's such good songs to learn because it really helps you identify the bass's role in a song, gives you some simple stuff, and even some songs are kind of similar. It's the same notes, sometimes in the same order, just with different timing. But it really sort of has helped me to better understand song structure and music structure a little bit. Like the bass line for Adam's Song, which is a very sad song. It's the same notes as the main starting line for Anthem Part 2, which is a much more upbeat song. The only difference is instead of doing the F way down here, you do it up here. So then that same bass line becomes... kind of a fun thing that I never would have noticed otherwise. I learned that the Rancid song that I never thought I'd be able to play, which is Roots Radicals, is basically just the C major scale, just notes along the C major scale. And I was like, oh, he's not just randomly deciding to choose notes to play. There's actually a purpose behind there. I was 13 when What's My Age Again was Blink-182's super popular song. And that was the first time I ever noticed the bass in the song, just the very simple... I just thought that sounded cool. I didn't know what it was. And then I kind of learned, oh, that's not a guitar, that's a bass. It's a totally different instrument. So that was the first time I noticed bass in a song. And then in high school is when I got more into Rancid. And that was when I really, I think the bass line for Roots Radicals is my favorite bass line of all time. Without knowing anything, that was just a song I would replay because I just loved the way that it sounds. the verse is really fun and it fits, and then the chorus makes no sense because it's not at all what you would do with the chorus of that song. The like, it goes like. This might sound awful, but I've also been using ultimateguitar.com to learn a few things, and they have like backing tracks you can play too. So I'll play some of those instruments. It's so compressed, and it's not the official band's playing, but at least you can hear how the bass would fit in a song. I think this will work. Let's see if it will. We'll try. Oh, there we go. We'll try this. So you get kind of an idea with that very compressed MP3 smashed up sound there. But at least you can kind of like mute the bass tracks. You can mute the different instrument tracks. There's no vocals. That's been super helpful though. Ultimate Guitar has also been helpful because you can learn, that's like their instrument tracks. But say I'll go to like what's another song? Like an Interrupters song. That's another one too. If you want like sort of in between Mark Hoppus and Matt Freeman, sort of where the Interrupters fit with some really fun bass lines. Yeah, and so when you play the songs themselves, they have kind of this digital sound. Like a little melody to get the vocals. But you can go through each individual instrument and mute it or solo it, and then you have like the actual backing tracks where somebody is playing it on instruments. I could play the song, mute the bass, so now I can start it over with no bass. There it is. Well, you know, the song continues. It's fine. I ain't doing second takes. I don't do 2 takes over here. Although I probably should. But that's been an awesome resource like that to learn songs. It's mostly correct. Sometimes it doesn't seem super correct. But after taking the Beginner to Badass bass course, when there's a song that's incorrect in Ultimate Guitar, I can at least sort of tell and then kind of, you know, work my way around this to try and fix it, or at least play it in a way that sounds good. And that was something that the course really did teach me, was there might be this is the way something is played on the sheet music, on the record, or whatever. That doesn't mean it's the only way to play it. It doesn't mean that if you do something a little different or add something a little different that it's incorrect. And that sort of freedom, you know, especially once you learn some of the basic rules, it's that freedom to sort of play around, you know, is really, really fun. A lot of the practice sessions with like the little MIDI tunes kind of sound more like this. Kind of been my bass journey for the past year. I'm really happy with it. Trust me, I know there's a lot of room for improvement there, but it's been fun to learn something, to be able to improve, to put hours into it, to have fun with it, and to find an instrument. As much as I love all my instruments and everything else I've played, to find something that just sort of clicked with my brain in a way that like made sense was really cool, because that's never happened before. And so, I don't know, I guess the closing thought would be that if you want to learn an instrument, you should definitely do that. Doesn't matter how old you are. I got this bass when I was 36. So, hey. And if you're learning an instrument that just seems like it's, I don't say too difficult because everything's going to be a little difficult, but it's just not clicking in a certain way, there might actually be a different instrument out there that your brain just sort of connects with and works for you. I don't know. Maybe that's not the case all the time, but having played other instruments for many, many years and having fun with them, but never really understanding it, I guess. This was the one for me that totally did it. Having this absolutely awesome bass. All of my other guitars are like made in Mexico Fenders, or I think it's an Indonesian Ibanez, and they're great, and I love them. And some of them are over 20 years old, like they last forever and they work great. There is a different level of quality and comfort and materials in this American Fender. I kind of wish that weren't the case. Part of me was hoping I'd be like, there's no difference between this one and the other one. There is a difference. I really love it. I don't know, maybe it's just this individual bass has like a vibe or juju that I like. I don't know, but it's terrific. It's been so much fun, and I'm very, very excited to continue learning as best that I can, as bass that I can, based on what I've done so far.